Hi, this is Ed Beckley. Welcome to Email 3. And in Email 3, we're going to be talking a little bit more about the process by which we become enlightened. The first two emails, we talked about different facets. Number one, just as a bit of a review for all of you, we talked about how each and every one of us are conditioned beings. That's right. We've been conditioned based on well-meaning parents, teachers, folks from our past, our educational system, our society, and yes, even our genes. And as a result of all of that, that which we take to be our own free decisions, our own choices, in essence, they're programmed. Study was once done that 90% of the thoughts that you have today, you had yesterday. That's right. And so they're going over and over and over. And so as a result, we are a slave to our past conditioning at this point. That's why in spiritual circles we call being in bondage. This is why, as a result, and particularly in Eastern spiritual circles, what we end up doing is we end up repeating our same mistakes over and over and over, and that's called karma. We make a mistake, we have an impression, and then as a result, we begin to move in another direction, and we generally move in a direction in which it causes us to suffer. Email 2, we started talking about awakening, the awakening process, and what the awakening process really is. In Email 2, we started experiencing the deepest part of our essential essence, that which we are, our own pure consciousness, our own pure awareness. In that pure awareness, from that pure awareness, which can also be called infinite intelligence, we come from a very still place. Now, in the beginning, that place, which is also transcendental in quality, that is, it goes beyond everything that we see in this life, that relative life, all the visuals, all the objective scenery that we see out there. When we transcend that, we go beyond that. In the beginning stages of meditation, in the beginning stages of our spiritual seeking, what happens is we start experiencing this delicious flavor of the transcendent. It may happen for a minute, it may happen for 5 minutes, it may even happen longer periods for some of you. And that's that first taste of the quality of sublime stillness, sublime essence that we are, that pure consciousness. And when we taste that, it beckons us back. It says, yes, yes, because its perfume is of peace. The quality is of just such beautiful coming to rest in our own bliss. Now, as we begin to experience that more and more, as we meditate longer, as our knowledge, as we begin understanding it in a more expanded sort of way, we go into what we're going to talk about today. And that is where Email 3, in Email 3 here, that's where we begin to stabilize that pure consciousness. That's where that pure consciousness begins to coexist with the relative values of life. It doesn't get effaced by strong issues in life. It doesn't get overshadowed by many of the different kinds of things that our angers and everything else. Now, it doesn't mean you can't get angry. It doesn't mean that you won't have tears. It doesn't mean any of that. It simply means that we have this underlying quality that never leaves. And when I mean it never leaves, this underlying pure consciousness is always there, coexisting with the mind qualities, coexisting with the intellect, coexisting with our emotions. So, in essence, it becomes the observer of our emotions. It becomes the observer of our intellectual process in one sense, and on another sense, it becomes the origin from all emotion, the origin of all feelings, the origin of all the intellectual processes comes from that pure awareness underneath. Now the good news is, as we begin to function much more from that pure, infinite, intellectual level, that pure essence, that pure consciousness, then life becomes a little bit easier. Things begin to unfold a lot easier. It's been said that even when we get angry, it will come up like a thunderstorm and then pass. One of my favorite metaphors is that in the age of ignorance, in the time in which we're completely ignorant, where we're completely mind identified, it's like a line in granite. If we're angry at something, and you've all known people that hold anger sometimes for years, and in some cases there are different people around the world, and particularly certain religions, that hold anger for generations, many generations. And that's the line in granite. As we begin to evolve, it might be a line in sandstone, those impressions, holding those feelings, those angers, that those toxic revenge and envy and things of that nature. And then as we begin to evolve a little more, it's like a line in sand. So the wind blows over it and those impressions leave. Then it becomes like a line in water. As you begin to reach this level where the pure awareness is coexisting with the mind, so that this pure awareness can observe the mind. It shines the bright light of consciousness on your mind, illuminates it. That's why sometimes people talk about enlightenment being illuminations. It brings on the light. So it can be seen. It can be seen by your pure awareness as it is. It's a much wider, comprehensive lens of life, this pure awareness. And as you're able to do that, and shining the light in a sustainable way, whether you're awake or whether you're dreaming or whether you're in deep sleep, that light of awareness is always shining on there in this particular state of consciousness as it coexists with the mind. All your thinking processes become clearer, because thinking is now not rooted based on being a slave to your past conditioning, your past experiences, and just being a playback unit. Your conditioning begins coming from that beautiful, unbounded awareness, that infinite intelligence, so the optimal and the best decisions can be made. Now, as we become clearer in that, as we're more established in that area of life, we begin seeing life differently. This is the beginning where a couple of things begin happening. And it could happen at any one of these stages, certainly, where the heart begins to open. The mind becomes clearer. It opens, the heart opens in a way in which you begin feeling this beautiful, sublime love for all of creation. There are moments of it, certainly. And the mind being clear, begins looking at life in a much more objective way, rather than about me and my problems. Sometimes people talk about enlightenment, and they try to define it. And if we were to look at it, it's just looking at the world not through the prism of the ego. And prism could be the prison of the ego. Seeing the world as it is. That's why one of the great hallmarks of enlightenment is people accept life as it is. Now, it doesn't mean you won't go and change it, but it's a great quality to begin to cultivate, to engender in your life. Accepting life as it is. So, in this particular stage of enlightenment, or the process of enlightenment, the stability of your pure self, your pure awareness underneath, begins to completely coexist 24/7 through waking, dreaming, and deep sleep states, and begin seeing life in a very objective way. But what starts happening is, you also begin seeing life a little more through the heart. Rather than just through the prism or prison of the mind, you begin seeing life much more through the heart, which shows a connectedness. As we begin to see life as a connectedness, you begin noticing that fear begins to diminish in life, and ultimately fear will be completely extinguished. Desire for anything external begins becoming minimized, and you become very self-sufficient, very self-effulgent, because resting in your own pure awareness, your own pure consciousness becomes enough in itself. In email 4, we'll begin talking more and more about how the heart begins dominating, and how we begin seeing life in a more unified kind of way, in a pure kind of way, a way in which most people only dream about, or they only have glimmers of it. All of you experience this for a moment, but allowing it to stabilize, perceiving life through the prism of love. And not the kind of love, personal love you're used to. It's a much more unbounded, a much more glorious, a much more exalted love. Thank you.